I'm Mr. Black, this is Beyond Creepy, and in this video I'm going to be discussing Bancroft, Ontario. Bancroft is a small town in Ontario, Canada, with a population of 3,881. Silent Lake Provincial Park and Algonquin Park, situated 60 minutes away, offer a vast wilderness for those wishing to hike, camp, and reconnect with nature. It also has a very rich history of paranormal occurrences. Everything from UFOs and ET encounters, Bigfoot, a werewolf, and even a naked ghost. In this video, I will cover some of these accounts. Since the 1800s, people have been coming to mine and log the Bancroft area. One home, in a secluded area on the outskirts of Bancroft, was said to be a former bordello. Its clientele consisted mainly of lonely miners and loggers. Over time, another visitor began showing up to partake in the nightly festivities, though this person wasn't a person at all. Rather, it was a spirit of a woman, believed to be a former madam, or possibly one of her girls. The one thing that makes this phantom different than most is its choice of attire, or rather lack of. See, this ghost is said to be naked. She is almost always seen by people standing inside the second-story window beckoning for people to come inside. Investigators in the area have not been able to confirm who this woman is and why she might be choosing to haunt said residents beyond what they can only assume. UFOs and extraterrestrials have also been sighted around Bancroft since at least the 1960s. In June 1965, at around 10 a.m., a female witness living in Bancroft claimed she overheard a sort of musical type humming sound outside her home. She went outside to see what it was and observed a large, silvery metallic dome craft hovering above a nearby field. There were several round portholes on the dome, and a sort of railing around a protruding rim, on which stood a number of men, which she guessed to be about 6 feet in height, all wearing light blue uniforms. The railing reached up to about their chest, and they appeared to be looking down and leaning over. The witness noted that these strange men appeared at ease and were conversing amongst each other. She watched them for a few minutes before turning and moving toward her garden. When she looked back up, she noticed that the object was gliding away towards the southeast. The men were still outside and the object was still emitting a musical humming sound, similar to the old musical tops she used as a child. The object soon passed from view behind some hilly and wooded terrain. On September 19, 2009, an oval-shaped object was sighted by some campers in the area. They had been out fishing and were returning to the shore when one of the people in the boat spotted a strange object sitting in the southern sky. We had no idea what we were looking at. It did not seem to be moving, but our boat was moving, so it was hard to tell. The object was an oval white circle, with a white cone at the bottom. It also seemed to be misty or in a cloud, but the night was clear and crisp. A couple of minutes after we noticed it, the light, it just dimmed, and we could not see it anymore. Another group that were returning from another location on the lake also saw the same thing and confirmed it with the witness and his friends. My first impression was a comet, but the direction and size of the cone, I knew it was not a comet. We were all pretty matter-of-fact about the sighting when talking about it, that we had no idea what we saw. It could be something from the American space program or something. We just can't explain. On May 10, 2010, another strange object was observed in the skies over Bancroft. It was 10 p.m. when the witness had their sighting. I was camping alone in the forest near Algonquin Park when I saw the object. At first I thought it was the North Star, but then realized it was moving at about the pace of a jet airliner. It moved across the sky high above me, about the height of a jet, for about 45 seconds in a straight line, like a plane. It then suddenly disappeared. Once it disappeared suddenly, I realized it wasn't a plane, and I was baffled and oddly excited. It looked like a bright star, but with about 4 times the mass, and had a blue hue. What could it have been? Given the abundance of forest around Bancroft, I guess it's no surprise that hairy bipedal creatures are also being sighted. On February 28, 2012, a man driving a tractor-trailer on Highway 62, north of Highway 7, on the Trans-Canada Highway, had just left Madoc, Ontario, and was about 10 to 15 minutes outside Bancroft when he sighted a strange creature near an overpass above a creek. On the right-hand side of the road, he observed a dark figure of a person, though he quickly determined that it wasn't a person because it was, quote, all dark brown, almost moose color, and it was very stocky. The witness noted that its head was, quote, like stuck on its shoulder, eliminating the neck, and the bicep was thick, should say massive. The driver claims he was hunched forward as he approached the overpass when he observed something that appeared to be moving. As he got to about 50 feet from it, the creature suddenly stood still. The trees were 80 to 100 feet from this figure. It might have been about 10 feet off the road and down the embankment, but I could see it from its waist up. Slightly hunched forward, the figure didn't seem to look at me. I know I was not seeing things. I will add that I had just started my shift at 5 p.m. that day, and the sighting was around 8:40 p.m. that night, so I was not tired. I would estimate the Sasquatch's height at 7 or 8 feet. It was down an embankment, but its head seemed to be a little higher than the road level. On the night of July 7, 2015, a man had gone out fishing for brook trout alone near Bancroft and was returning to his cabin via a gravel road. It was still light enough out that he was able to see about 50 feet ahead of him, even without having to use his headlights. He soon came upon what he thought was a person standing in the middle of the road about 20 feet away. As he drew closer, he realized that it was not a man. Rather, it was a strange creature unlike any he had ever seen before, except in the movies. It stood 7 feet tall, was covered in black hair with grayish silver parts, and was hunched over with a dead rabbit in its hands. He noted that it had fingers with claws and its feet appeared to be bent backwards. Speaking to investigator Linda Godfrey, the witness noted that it reminded him of the werewolf-like creatures in the movie Dog Soldiers. It turned its head and shoulders and looked right at me. I could see its yellow eye shine, he told her. Creature seemed to be growling at the witness, a low growl that made the hair stand up on the back of his neck. Terrified and in a panic, the man hit the gas with the intention of driving into it. He closed his eyes, bracing for impact, but somehow the creature either jumped to the ditch on the side of the road or laid down to let the truck, which rode 22 inches off the ground, roll over it. He checked his rearview mirrors repeatedly but saw nothing as he raced back to his cabin. He eventually made it there unharmed and quickly hurried inside. As he tried to calm down, he began hearing something large walking around outside his cabin. From what he could tell, there seemed to be 2 of them, whatever they were. While he could get no signal coverage on his cell phone, he did attempt to photograph them by aiming his camera through the openings of his window shutters. At least 3 of the photos, which he provided to Linda Godfrey, seem to show something that appears to be, in Linda's words, quote, a shadowy dog-shaped head. The witness claims that he remained in the cabin until dawn, a long, tense night without sleep. Desperate to leave, he came up with a plan to trigger his vehicle's alarm from inside his cabin, in the hopes that it would frighten them away long enough for him to get inside his vehicle. As the alarm rang out, he raced from his cabin, jumped in his truck, and sped off for home, which was 5 hours away. The witness confessed to Godfrey that he still has nightmares about it.
I found it interesting that the witness, he claimed that this thing that he saw reminded him of the werewolf-like creatures from the movie Dog Soldiers. When you listen to his story, it does sound a lot like Dog Soldiers, the plot of the movie, where these soldiers take refuge inside this cabin which is surrounded by a bunch of werewolves who are trying to get in. Reminded me a lot of that, the fact that he said it looked like the creature, and the fact that they followed him back to his cabin, and they basically circled the cabin the whole night until he was able to make a getaway. Really did remind me of that. So, coincidence? Is the story made up? I trust Linda Godfrey, so I don't know.
For me, one of the craziest incidents to occur in the Bancroft area happened in 1991 and involved 2 witnesses staying at a cottage just outside Bancroft. The main witness, a self-described computer geek who was 21 years old at the time, recalled that he and 8 of his friends had gathered at the cottage to mourn the death of a friend who had passed away recently in a car accident. At some point that evening, the witness and another friend had left the gathering and walked down to the lake. We were chatting, kind of looking at each other from time to time during the chat. While glancing at my friend, I saw a streak, blurry object whiz past his head about 3 meters behind him. This caught my attention and my sentence began to linger, and I was stuttering a bit. It obviously whizzed behind me, past my head too, as my friend caught a glimpse of it as well. Whatever it was moved out in front of us very quickly, at about 10 meters above the water, at our eye level, but within the bay, not on the ledge, meaning hovering, and right in front of us. It whipped away, and in less than 3 seconds it performed a horizontal loop across the whole bay area. 200 to 300 meter diameter horizontal circle. It moved in sharp and specific motion and made no sound. The 2 friends watched it as it shot around the bay area for about 10 seconds, at which point it moved right up to the witness and his friend. It dipped a meter or 2 and swooped up directly in front of us. Now at this point it could not have been more than 5 meters away from us. It stopped dead in front of us. We freaked out. They raced back to the cottage but elected not to tell anyone given how bizarre what they saw was, though eventually news of the sighting got around. Some friends joked about it while others attributed it to the anxiety of losing a friend. The witness, however, knew better. We know exactly what we saw. We just did not know what to make of it. I think that we finally attributed it to a paranormal incident. Now that I have grown another 17 years and have researched only a bit, which is easily enough with today's information exchange, I know what I saw. He described that what he and his friend saw that night was a flying entity. According to him, it had a classic ET or gray alien face, i.e. large black eyes, small nose, slit for a mouth. It had a thin neck. Its head was wide. It was encompassed in a diamond-shaped glow that appeared as a yellow-orange hazy undefined outline. The one thing that stood out to the 2 witnesses the most was that its head and face were clearly visible, and that when it flew up and hovered directly over and above them, it looked at them. It looked at us directly, curved its head to its left, our right, up, and then we lost sight, crawling up the hill, and it darted away. The feeling was emotional, but we may have been lost in our emotions about our deceased friend. But the saving grace is, we saw it together, described it and the feelings around it. We did not hallucinate, nor were we both psychotic. My friend is like me, a computer geek. We are very realistic, and I am more vocal about my thoughts though. We have spoken briefly about it since then, 17 years past now, and nothing more. I do know that he would back my story exactly.
I actually discussed this case with Albert Rosales because we really didn't know what to make of it. When you read the report, you can't really understand what's going on. But the best I could make out is this witness and his friend watched this entity float around the sky doing tricks and stuff. It flew up to them and then flew away. It didn't sound like it had any kind of propulsion system. It wasn't in a UFO. It was just a typical gray alien surrounded in a glowing, I guess, a diamond-shaped bubble, a haze around it, and it was flying around the lake. That's weird. I haven't read too many reports like that.